Hello everyone, Nolan West here. Today is May 3rd, 2020, and everything I cover in this video is valid up until that date. And I try not to talk about COVID-19 numbers too much because tracking stats too closely can actually distort your view of the problem. But the numbers have changed quite a bit recently, and I think that merits taking another look. And the last time I covered the numbers was April 6th, 2020. And then we had 986 positive cases from 28,000 tests. Now, a little less than a month later, we have 6,663 cases out of 82,000 tests. And the drastic increase in positive cases is concerning, and it gives a partial picture of how contagious COVID-19 is. But there are really two things we should be looking at closely to get an accurate picture of the situation in full context. And we need to be monitoring the proportion of tests that are positive, because we are testing more people every day, which means the number of positive cases will always be climbing and climbing and climbing. And there's a big difference between 3% of their total tests being positive and 10% being positive. And looking at the rate of positive tests gives us a more accurate picture of how fast this virus is spreading compared to just looking at the number of positive tests. Here you'll see that the percentage of positive tests is increasing. A couple of weeks ago, around 5% of the tests came out positive, but the past week, we've seen an average of just under 13% for positive tests. And this means that the virus is spreading significantly faster now than in early April, which is to be expected because more sick people there are, the more they will be spreading the virus around. But what really matters is the severity and how bad are these cases we are seeing. The best metric to see how severe the cases are looking is looking at ICU bed usage. And looking here, you can see that ICU bed usage is headed up after a slight lull in April. In fact, this graph is quite scary, and the media is having a lot of fun recently making graphs look as scary as possible. But let's compare this ICU usage with our ICU bed capacity. And this is important because one of the biggest factors in preventing fatalities from COVID-19 is whether you can get intensive care treatment. So let's take our total ICU capacity of 2,587 and cut it in half to 1,294 because non-COVID patients will still be taking up a good amount of ICU beds. And as you can see, we have a lot of ICU space right now. And when people talk about flattening the curve, flattening this curve is what really matters. And as you can see, it's quite flat, so we're doing it well. In Minnesota, we have done a great job at social distancing and slowing down the spread of the virus. I went for a stroll yesterday in the wonderful weather we had, and while I was out, there was a ton of people out, but every single one was following social distancing guidelines, and that's a good thing to see. And that reflects our collective vigilance that we've had as Minnesotans, that we can handle this virus. And our hospitals are far from overwhelmed, in fact. Many hospitals have been laying off staff because elective surgeries aren't happening right now, which is terrible. This is why so many people want to see most of our state reopen. With the exception of businesses that generate large crowds like bars and theaters, businesses can reopen safely without overwhelming our hospitals, which is the chief concern. We still need to keep our vulnerable isolated, though. Out of 419 cases so far, 419 deaths, 80% of those have occurred in long-term care or assisted living facilities. But if we can keep them isolated and businesses continue to follow social distancing protocols with masks, we can get our economy restarted soon and get people back into their jobs. We've gone from under 3% unemployment in Minnesota to well over 10%. And every day that continues, we will see compounded negative consequences radiate throughout our state. So in summation, COVID-19 is spreading at an increasing rate in Minnesota, which is important to note. But even if we see a 5-fold increase at current rates, we still will have ample capacity in our hospitals. And thanks to our collective efforts, social distancing is why that's possible. And I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. And as always, stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.